All right, YouTube. Due to media propaganda, more and more people keep referring to Edward Snowden as some sort of traitor. I said, over a year ago, I don't consider him to be a hero. What he did wasn't heroic in the standard sense, but he is a patriot. I believe that what he did out of a genuine love for the country and for the U.S. Constitution. I don't think he was trying to screw the United States. I think it was all a bunch of bullshit from the Obama camp when they said, oh, he's giving our secrets to Russia, he's giving our secrets to China. That's just a bunch of bullcrap that they're trying to use to smear him, to take heat off themselves for running an unconstitutional surveillance program. And now it turns out Edward Snowden was right all along when he said, I would have offered up my information as a whistleblower and stayed in the US and taken what came if there had been a proper channel to do so that I wouldn't get screwed up the ass for using. It now turns out, of course, another source from the NSA is confirming, yeah, there's actually like fucking no way for somebody to keep a government bureaucracy and accountable from within the Bureau itself. What Snowden did was essentially necessary if he wanted to get this information out there, because if he had gone to one of his superiors or something with the fact that, something screwy's going on here, this is probably unlawful, has the court weighed in on this certainly seems suspect over here, and so forth, sort of picking through it. He would have just gotten canned and probably thrown in Gitmo or something. And that's true, and that's what I said some time ago. How the hell is somebody supposed to come forward and cause the government to investigate whether something the government's doing is legal or not? That's just not the way that it works. It's like La La Land. You're assuming that there's a fundamental good within a bureaucratic agency. Now, do you think there's a fundamental good within the IRS? The answer is probably no. What about the DMV? No, I think that they are keepers of the gateway to hell or something like that. No, bureaucracies don't run that way. The bureaucracy runs by making itself seem more important than it is, so it can absorb more and more taxpayer money, hire more and more useless people to shuffle around paperwork, gets more and more convoluted with regulation and paperwork over time to the point where it ceases to basically function. If you've ever watched the movie Brazil, then you'll see the end result, the dystopian end result, but amusingly enough, probably the real end result of a bureaucracy gone haywire. Paperwork everywhere, forms everywhere, people constantly moving around, agencies that nobody knows what the hell they do. That's basically the future that any bureaucrat-heavy society is moving towards. Bureaucracy, when initially implemented, is supposed to increase efficiency. It's supposed to increase output and keep misery down. And it can work that way for a while until the bureaucrats realize that they can start whining and saying, we don't have enough people, we're not being paid enough, maybe go on strike once in a while. And then, of course, the Bureau grows and grows and gains more and more power until it's basically a government unto itself. That's the way the IRS operates. The NSA signs its own warrant. Somehow, even though it's unconstitutional, they still get away with it. I'm not exactly sure how. The FISA courts that are used to issue these blanket warrants, they're unconstitutional too. They're not courts of law. They can't issue a warrant. They're not a proper, honest-to-goodness court of law. They're extrajudicial. They're not functioning that you can't go before them, file a case, and say, I want a hearing. You can't go before them and present evidence on your behalf. Therefore, it's not a court of law. That's not what a court of law is. So Snowden exposed all this stuff. He exposed the fact, and at every step of the way, he also exposed those that tried to be detractors as liars. Do you remember this? Remember when Snowden first leaked his info? He said, oh, the NSA is conducting useless domestic surveillance, not stopping any attacks, it's fucking worthless, and it's violating the Constitution. Over and over, I think Clapper came out, the head of the NSA. Boehner at one point came out. Several other senators came out, and they kept giving these rather strange sounding, Pelosi too, which is funny, Democrats and Republicans. They kept giving these numbers of terrorists that were stopped by NSA surveillance. And I think Clapper said a half a dozen that he knew of. Pelosi said 20 or something, and then Boehner came out and said, oh, well, it stopped 100 attacks. And the number kept growing and growing. And it turned out when Leahy, one of my own senators, who I don't even like, by the way, was questioning Clapper, he got him to admit, oh, well, there were no actual credible terrorist attacks thwarted by the NSA. Like I pointed out in the Garland shooting, the Fort Hood massacre, the Boston bombing, certainly, San Bernardino, all these different attacks. You got people who, in many cases, are under direct surveillance by the NSA and or FBI, or have been looked into in the past. They conduct their attacks and they're never stopped, but the NSA keeps holding tabs on it, like every fucking American and everyone else in the world. And then there was the funny thing, when the leaks first happened, the Snowden leaks, Obama came out and said, oh, well, the only thing we're collecting is metadata, that is no actual content, just from cell phones, and only in the case where someone is communicating with a possible target overseas. So it's just metadata, it's a very small number of people, and it's just being caught up because we're conducting foreign surveillance, so it's perfectly kosher and legal. By the way, if that was what they were doing, he'd be right. That would have been just fine for the federal government to do. Unfortunately, then Snowden reveals, oh, it's not just metadata, it's actual call content. And then Obama had to backtrack and say, oh, okay, yeah, sometimes it's real phone content that we're gaining. But like I said, it's just people who are talking to, like, Osama Pendejo overseas or something. Then Snowden came out and said, that's not actually true, Mr. President. It's anybody who's making a foreign call. And Obama had to backtrack again and said, oh, okay, that's true. But we're not doing domestic surveillance between U.S. citizens. And we're sure as hell not collecting the actual content of phone calls or text messages or emails or browsing histories or anything else like this. And of course, Snowden then blew that up too, because he said, yeah, actually you are. You're collecting literally everything. And then the intelligence agencies themselves, that is the former head of the NSA, who I'm assuming is probably knowledgeable about this subject, said, yeah, it doesn't do anything. Because going through all of this massive, massive pile of information that amalgamates second by second everywhere in the world is like trying to find a needle in a haystack, and the algorithms don't do anything, and the human labor needed to actually comb through a small proportion of this material, even the flag material, is absolutely massive, and there are never enough agents to do it. And so Clapper sort of blushes and sits there and shuffles his feet and pretends he doesn't know anything about these claims by the former head of the NSA. And then it turned out that agents were able to essentially write themselves off a cursory warrant at their fucking desk under the title Love Int, which Love Intelligence, which means that, oh yeah, I'm spying on my ex-girlfriend, I'm spying on my sister or something. I'm just conducting surveillance on someone that I know because I happen to fucking want to, and they can write this off and not even get in trouble for it. The entire program is unconstitutional from stem to stern. Everything about what the NSA is doing is unconstitutional. Several federal courts already said that some aspects of the program were unconstitutional. Challenge it all, and you'll find all of it's unconstitutional. The NSA shouldn't even exist. The head of the NSA should be in a gulag right now for treason against the United States Constitution. Is he going there? Of course not. Did it help that Rand was the one person trying to stand against this bullcrap to defund the NSA, and at the last minute Ted Cruz bailed on him and Mitch McConnell stabbed him in the back? Of course not. The Republicans like to conduct domestic surveillance as much as the Democrats do. Pelosi was all in favor of it. Obama. Look at the list of people in favor of the NSA spying. Obama, Pelosi, Harry Reid, John Boehner, Mitch McConnell, apparently people like Ted Cruz and Rick Santorum and Lindsey Graham. Is this or is this not a laundry list of people that most people in the country understand are dishonest? Whereas then you've got people who, by comparison, seem relatively stable, like Rand Paul, Ron Paul, Bernie Sanders to a lesser extent. They're all like against all this bullcrap. And it costs too much money too, and Snowden now, he's been borne out. You can't call him a traitor anymore. It's impossible now because he's right. We've got another source at the NSA saying, yeah, there was no way for him to report what was going on. When Obama and Clapper and McConnell and all of these others said, well, maybe he had his concerns and maybe some of them were kind of justified, wringing their hands together, weaseling around with their sparse stubble on their face as they try to worm their way through what they're saying. Maybe he had concerns, but he should have gone through the proper internal channels to report it. If he thought something was amiss, if he thought it wasn't working, he should have gone through the right channels to do that. But there were no channels for him to go through, and we know that now. This is just another nail in the coffin of domestic surveillance. People, I think a lot of people, I hope the young especially, understand it's not working. If it were working, maybe you could make an argument for why you had to violate the Constitution every day. If there was at least a kernel of pragmatism there, at the very least, the centrists wouldn't mind. They'll roll over and let themselves be abused in terms of something they feel is necessary for their security. I go Ben Franklin mode and say they're morons, but they would tolerate it. But it turns out it's not even necessary. It's not doing anything. It didn't stop a single attack. Why are we funding this program? If there was another federal bureaucracy that was tasked with something important related to security, and it had a 0% success rate and cost billions of dollars a year, would we fund it? Well, maybe we would, but people wouldn't be too happy about it. But with the NSA, they don't even talk about it anymore, except when Rand Paul speaks. When he gives a speech, people talk about the NSA and how shitty it is. But everyone has conveniently forgotten that Snowden was right every step of the way. By the way, the fact that he fled to China and then Russia has nothing to do with, oh yeah, I'm going to go sell this information to a bunch of communists because that'll just be great. I don't think that he did that at all. I think he went there because of the fact that most countries in the developed, civilized world have extradition treaties with the United States. He can't go to those countries. He'll just get deported back here and put in Guantanamo Bay for having done nothing wrong. He didn't. All he did was expose, hey, your rights are being violated, folks. Wake the fuck up. So yeah, I'm in favor of what Snowden did. It was important. The funniest thing was this. Obama said, oh, well, now we can have a hearty national debate about the role of domestic surveillance. We couldn't have had that fucking debate without the dude you keep calling a traitor, because nobody knew this was going on. That we had Russ Tice and a few other people sort of talk about it a little bit, but we never knew the full scope of abuse and stupidity that was going on at the NSA before Snowden blew the lid off of it. And so now, because of this person that you call like a traitor who's selling our secrets to Putin or whatever, because of that, and endangering government encryption and empowering terrorists and all these other imaginary boogeymen that the government dreams up that the government keeps funding over in the Middle East anyway, oh, because of that, we can have a healthy national debate. But, oh, I don't want to have that debate because this is just a fucking traitor. No, he's not. He was a patriot. I don't consider him a hero, but Snowden is a patriot. He believed in what he was doing, and that what he was doing was right. And he had no other channel to go through to report what was happening. He had to leak it directly to the media and to the American people. Kudos to him for doing so. He did the right thing. The government may not like that, but then again, the government's often not on the side of good. The government's often the one standing in the way of good being done. The legalism of our society means that if you stop like an assault taking place on the street, oftentimes you're the one that ends up getting sued. It doesn't make any sense. It's like the Superman days are over. There's no nobility left in the American public because it's just been beaten out of them by a bunch of bureaucrats. While some people still retain their patriotism, much to the chagrin of people like Obama and Bush and McConnell and Nancy Pelosi and all these other morons that are in office. That's about all. Peace out.